It's been a month, not quite a month. Well, it's been a month in terms of when we've released these episodes, but we wanted to
Yes.
make sure that because we had a bit of a technical issue with the May episode, just a tiny one, little tiny one, and but we have to keep this series alive and keep it going because we've got momentum going with this thing. Right?
We do. Uh, so I want to start off with what I think is the best productivity tip in ages. Although it works for me, like all things productivity. Um, what works for one person may not necessarily work for another. And you'll learn about all of this and Mike's new book, The Productivity Diet, which should be available as of this airing. And you may even find a copy at your local bookstore. But if not, I'm sure you can go to mikevardy.com and get it. But I'm not here to sell books. I'm here to give you a fantastic tip that works for me, that I only just discovered. It's something I've been doing for a while, and I kind of knew all along it worked, but it's not like something I planned for. It's just something I happened to suddenly notice. And that is this. Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take out your to-do list, your list of all the things that you got to do. I don't care what style it is, whether it's in your Bujo, whether it's in that's bullet journal for the non-nerds, whether it's you're using my Dash Plus thing, whether you're you're GTDing it up and your OmniFocus, whatever you're doing, pull out that list, all the projects, all the next actions, whatever. Okay, now I want you to scan through that list, and I want you to pick out. This is not for today. This isn't to do today.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, it's best if you're doing this like at the end of your day,
Okay.
or the evening before the next day. Okay, so you're gonna do this at night for the night owls. For those who are not night owls, you'll do this at like 8 before you go to bed. And we're going to pick out from that list something relatively easy, probably non-consequential, but will be tremendously satisfying to finally get done. It's like that one thing, the one thing that that everyone's got one on their list that they kind of, for whatever reason, they put off maybe because it's too easy.
Right.
They put off because it's, oh, I can do that later. No. Those are the ones I want you to look for. I want you to look for those. All right. And here's what I want to do. I want you to take that and make that the only thing on tomorrow's to-do list.
All right.
The only thing. And here's what I want you to plan for. You're going to wake up in the morning. Go ahead and make your coffee. Get your coffee. If you want your coffee, get your coffee, especially if you make your coffee at home. But if you don't make your coffee...
You would have lost me if you didn't put that disclaimer in there.
Right. Exactly. Right. But here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to get sidetracked. I don't want you to go off to Starbucks or something and then decide, oh, well, while I'm out and about. No, you have to get this thing done.
Or check your email while you're waiting for the coffee.
Right, exactly. Nope. And all of a sudden it derails. No, none of that.
Yeah.
I really want you to start with this annoying yet tremendously satisfying to get done thing. Because I can guarantee you that will jumpstart your day. That will give you the momentum. You'll get that done. I'll be satisfied. For me, oftentimes it's just simply unloading the dishwasher and cleaning up the kitchen.
Right.
Like right away in the morning. I get my coffee. I feed the dogs. I've taken care of everything that needs to get taken care of in the kitchen. And now I can unload the dishes from the night before. I can put those away. I can wipe down the stove. I can, maybe if I have dishes still left over from cooking dinner before, I can wash those. And tremendously satisfying. a silly thing that one of those things that you kind of have to do every day. But by jump starting the day with something that you find like really, like,
Yeah.
wow, man, I can guarantee you the rest of your day will be productive because you've started it. You've jump started it with some momentum. You got that going, and now you're on to the next thing, and you're feeling on top of the world. You're getting stuff done, and you look up and it's noon and it's lunchtime. You're like, holy crap, this has been awesome, right? And it works for me. Maybe it'll
No,
work for
no.
you, but
And what I
but there's
like,
something to that, getting that going. You know what I mean?
well, what I like about that is there's a couple things. Number one is you're removing any friction from the momentum piece anyway. For example, a lot of people when they present an idea like that, they'll go eat the frog, right? It'll be like eat the
Yep.
frog, or
Yep.
it'll be pick 6 things like the Ivy Lee method or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
always a little bit of an extra thing to think about. And what you've shared is do the thing. Like pick one thing and do it. It
One.
doesn't need
Yeah.
to be the most. I mean, it could be call your mom.
Mm-mm.
It could be whatever
Mm-mm.
it. But
Yeah.
the bottom line is that, and I think that's where momentum gets tripped up. It gets tripped up in the details, in the when you go too far. Like, so for example, I mean, I'll go back to the example I gave where, you're getting your coffee from Starbucks. Okay. Oh, well, while I'm waiting, I'll check my email, and that's it. And you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
and
Yep. Now you're off into somewhere else.
it's interesting because I've constructed my schedule as of late, because as we're recording this, as much as the productivity diet is out there, and by the way, thank you for bringing it up off the top. I'm already in the process of the draft of the second book, which that I've been working on a draft for a follow up, which by the way won't be coming out for a while, but I do need to get that thing done. So what I've done is, and this is where I think like back to back, the right activity before another activity can be really super helpful. So what I was doing, and this started as far back as February, maybe even January, is I stopped listening to things when I went for my walks. So instead of listening to podcasts or music or whatever, I just went with my phone, and I had my notepad with me, and I just went for a walk, and I just had my thoughts, right? And for the longest, what would happen is I would invariably, as I'm walking, and this is not unusual for a writer, the ideas would come and I would dictate them and so on and so forth. But what I had, and this is where momentum can get tripped up, is, well, my walk was in the morning, and then after that, I should go into my daily theme, right? Which is what I was doing. But the problem is that, and I believed, and this is true, that the act of capturing was enough, right? And it is a good, but I was invariably, and I noticed this in my journal entries, I wouldn't get back to it the same way. I wouldn't get back to it the same day. I wasn't leveraging the momentum. I wasn't leveraging what had come from that walk, which is a completely different exercise. And then coming back and sitting at my desk or standing at my desk or whatever, and just actually working on whatever I was writing. Like, so I almost recognized that the walking was the precursor to the writing. So it couldn't be, it needed those things to be together, as opposed to, okay, I went for my walk, now it's time for me to come back and do this thing. And then it's, no, I had to bring them closer together. There is no bridge. The bridge was, in fact, the walk. As soon as I did that, everything was better. And that's because momentum shows up in very different. I actually wrote about this before, the idea of momentum, slowmentum, and gomentum. And like gomentum is the, like, let's go. Momentum is kind of, it is the nuance that you discussed. It's the nuance I just discussed. And then there's slowmentum, which is kind of like the underpinning that, everything is kind of, it doesn't show up in the same way. It's not as, say, fierce or overt, but it's there. It's the, you know what it is? It's the practice of when I'm sitting there signing books and then moving on to the next one and the next one. Like that, that is slowmentum. It's not, I mean, I'm getting the thing done. And what you can see is, because you can see the finish line, that's what keeps you going. Not the initial burst, but you're like, okay, well, I'm going to slow and steady wins the race. Slow and steady wins the race. So it's really interesting as soon as because I think a lot of people consider a momentum to just be at the start, right? Like it's a trigger.
No. Yeah. No. It's. I mean, you want to sustain that
Mm-hmm.
momentum,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to not just start and be done. You want it to, you want to have that jump start and then sustain that pace, right?
Yeah.
Um, when runners are running a marathon or any sort of distance, ultimately what, the best runners are looking for is not, is not how fast they can go in any one leg of that race. No, they want consistency. They want evenness. They want all of their Ks to be 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And
Yep.
if you're running that fast for a K, you should be a professional. I'm just saying. But you get what I'm saying, right?
Yep.
Like it should be, you what you don't want is you don't want a 3-minute K and then a 9-minute K at the end, right? What you
Mm-hmm.
want is consistency all the way through. And that is what momentum is.
Yeah.
Momentum is finishing the same way you started.
I wonder if, and you know how we love to go down the word nerd category.
Mhm.
Momentum. It's not. It's moment, right? There
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
no. It doesn't quantify. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Mm.
moments are not
Mhm.
like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a moment isn't 5 minutes, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So it's very the relationship between flow and momentum are very, very it's intrinsic, because
Sure.
flow feels like when you have I think that you could probably even argue that flow and momentum are cousins in a way too.
Well, one is space and the other is time.
Yes. Yeah. 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 One is based on space. Both well, they both have time involved and they both have space involved.
Sure,
I think
sure,
I think
sure,
I
sure, but
I think flow is space over time and
yes,
momentum is time over space.
time over space. That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think, and what's interesting is that we we need to remove friction for both to happen, right?
Yes.
And
Well, you need to remove
ideally,
friction to ideally not just for both to happen, but what you need to do is we have this idea that friction stops you. No, friction just slows you down,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't slow you to a stop,
Sure.
but and the reason for removing it is so that but if there is some friction, it's not necessarily going to stop you. It's just going to make it everything that much harder.
It's so interesting. I had this conversation for a podcast episode that we'll be releasing a couple months from now, from James Kimmel Jr., who wrote the book called The Science of Revenge. We'll link to it in the show note. We'll link to the book in the show note. But what's funny is that, of course, that book title stood out to me, right? Because I've
Right.
never really thought about revenge in terms of any cause of the world's deadliest addiction. It's a fascinating book, fascinating kind of, and what he mentioned and what I hear time and time again, and I'm preaching to the choir here. But when
Yeah.
friction shows up, whether with flow or momentum, you make a really good point. It doesn't necessarily stop you, but what it should do is it should act when friction shows up as a reason to pause or slow down. Don't look at it as I
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
so. So don't look at it as well, that's the end of it. It's like, okay, why did this
Mhm.
show up? Like it's more curious, like more leading to this idea of why is this here? What is, excuse me, why is this presenting itself? As opposed to, well, this showed up, so that's the end of it. And the reason I bring up that conversation with James Kimmel is that in order for revenge to kind of not take hold and do some of the insidious things they can do, the thing you need to do is pause, stop, think, take a break, breathe. Like all of these things, I think most of our major problems when it comes to being productive and actually achieving the outcomes that we want is slowing down, pausing, taking a beat. And yet the idea that gets constantly proliferated that is, you don't have time. You don't have time. You better don't slow down. Keep going no matter what. And they're paradoxical, but if what's interesting is I think if you pause and stop for even just the briefest of moments, it'll help. It'll actually keep you in that state of productiveness more so than just the let's just keep going, right?
Yeah. Well, and yes, no, I think you've hit it pretty square on the head. Yeah, I really think that what we are ultimately looking for, right? What's the goal? What's the why, right?
Yeah.
Why, what, and it is that, I know I come back to it frequently. But that David Allen 30,000 foot,
Yep.
40,000
Horizons
foot
of focus.
view,
Yep.
the horizons of focus, right? And the reason that you need to kind of keep that in mind, the reason you need to have that kind of why, what's the ultimate goal here, is that that's actually part of the tools that allow you to reduce the friction.
Yep.
That allow you to remove the friction, right? Or that allow you to even just sustain the momentum you have, right? So long story short,
what's the signal? It's really like
right.
You if you don't slow down, you can't possibly pay attention, let alone discern what the signal it's trying to send is.
Right, exactly. Or even what you get so caught up in the weeds that you lose sight of the field,
Yeah.
right? You lose sight of the reason why you're mucking through the weeds, right?
So this brings up another really interesting, probably a bit vulnerable is not the right word. I'll use it anyway because I can't think of another one offhand, and it's still early in the day, so my brain hasn't fully woken up yet. But we talked about the momentum of me going from the walking to the writing. And we're now in the phase of my book where it's marketing, right? Like I'm in that marketing phase, right? The book is done.
Yeah, which is kind of hard to be in when you're already on to the second book.
Except there's an adjacency to it which is the role of a writer. So that role makes it adjacent. So if I hated writing, if I wasn't somebody who loved writing, yes, I would probably be first off, I would have hopefully been wise enough to go, guess what? I'm only on marketing now. And there is no other book, right? Like it would have just been this is the thing. And what you would view it as is this book is a tripwire to get people to do other things, which we've seen from other people. Lots of creators have made books knowing full well what they are. And I view it the same way in a manner of speaking. The idea of I'm a writer, but I also know that it's an easy access point for people to get to, to know my work, to explore things more, that kind of thing. And it's a low cost, yet high effort. It's a lot easier to make a course than it is to write a book. Like it really is.
Wow.
And I think it's because the course you can iterate and see it happening in, you know what I mean? And you can, to me, at least, and again, that's for me. But but what's interesting is because I am a writer and the role is as such, I know that one of the jobs of me as a writer is to market the book, but I also know that the core role is writing. So in essence, I can hold those two ideas, those two tasks, as long as they are as long as I have a way to point my attention on the right things at the right time, which I'm hopefully pretty good at by this point. But I think the role, it can inform how long the momentum can last as well, because I don't see, it's almost like a flywheel where, like, okay, so I'm marketing this book while I'm writing the next one. Oh, okay, well, that book's now, like, I don't see that. If it's going to stop, it'll be because, okay, well, now there's 2 books out and the marketing's done. Like, I don't think that ever really will, quote, completely stop. It just won't have the same heightened level of focus. So the tricky part, this is where the friction shows up, is the other things. If I was only focusing on marketing the productivity diet and writing the next book, then there would be no issue. But I also have real life happening around me, real business happening. And so this is where, like, again, framing, having an understanding of where you're talking about, pausing, slowing down. I mean, it's not unlike navigating a city versus navigating the freeway, right? Like, the freeway, you can go and there's a lot more room. But for me, right, like, I feel like there's a lot of navigating my neighborhood, okay, you can't go really fast because you might miss it. First off, it's dangerous to go fast. Secondly, the turns come much closer. You're trying to pay attention. You're not quite sure where you're going. Oh, I've got to send this book off to this person. Okay, well, let me go over here. Oh, this might present itself. So there's a lot of that happening. Where if I was on the freeway, like, if I was only writing a book and that's it, well, then that makes it a lot easier because there's nothing else going on. So it again goes back to all the stuff we've talked about, like choices, boundaries, nuance, all of those things, which are real life things that we face every day. And if we can kind of understand the role momentum has and learn how to leverage it, as opposed to when someone says, oh, I have momentum right now. Okay, great. What are you going to do with that? As opposed to, I have momentum, and then, because then you become really myopic. I think the danger is becoming too myopic when you have momentum, and just understanding that, to your point, friction is going to show up. And how do you, again, let that friction serve you as opposed to cause you to stumble?
Yeah. Well, and part of that is just like, I mean, that's the idea behind, the kind of minimum viable task, right? That when you have a project, like, what's the one thing you can do to get that project started, right? To take it off the ground and move it from zero, right? And one of the best ways to do that is to kind of, pick up that minimum viable task, right? Because the other thing about that is that that all of the friction at that point, all of the friction of that project is in the starting, right?
Yep, totally.
Like once you start, you have moved past, the first point of friction, right? and probably the most, in the case of some projects, the most mentally derived or mentally, I don't know, started. I don't know the word I'm looking for, but you get what I mean, right?
Totally.
It's and especially for those hard ones, right? The one that you're, like, afraid of, the one that you like, oh shoot, I don't want to do this, but I have to. But oh my gosh, I don't want to, right?
Yep.
I don't want to is the friction, right? And the moment that
but it doesn't show up that way all the time. It doesn't show up as I don't want to. It is I don't want to, but it presents itself. So, what about this thing? Like that's sometimes the thing. It's not, I don't want to. It's like your brain goes, I won't get the answer I want if I say I don't want to do this, because your brain will go, well, you have to. But if you go, but what about this? It goes, yeah, you're right. That's something we could do. It is that, and we face it all the damn time.
Yeah,
And it
that's true.
misrepresents itself. It misrepresents itself. It's the same thing as when I say, honestly, sometimes, Patrick, the best thing, if someone was to say to me, okay, how do I figure out what my minimum viable task is to this project? It's so big. What's the minimum viable task? I'm like, breaking the project down. What? Yeah, that's the minimum viable task. Like, if that's what it takes. And by the way, like, so for example, in the idea of writing a book, if you do it once, you've got a template, right? Now, that doesn't mean that the template is the same for every single book that you do or every single project that you have.
No,
but
not
it gives
at all.
you, but to your point, it gives you a starting off point, which allows you to leverage momentum, because you can go, well, these things are the things I know that have to happen. I need to get an ISBN code. I need to find out if I need to write X number of words. There's all those things that show up. But to your point, because that's the concern I have, is it going to be a lot easier to market the book that's already out there? Or is it going to be easier for me to write the next book? Or, and in some instances, it's actually funny. The monthly theme I've chosen for July, which came from a workshop I did, is joy working. Like literally, I just decided, and it's because I want to work on things in the summer that I enjoy, right?
Sure.
But also, but not just that. And see, that's the kicker, because we don't always get to do what we want. But I also say joy working also is the work that I can do that can bring joy.
Yeah.
And as soon as that happens, it's like, okay, well, what is that? And again, on that walk the other day, I was sitting there going, the productivity diet I released to some fanfare. The whole point of it was I wasn't going to do this big, super huge launch situation. I didn't want to do that. We had the Kickstarter backers. It took a long time to get the book out there. It's out there. And now my job is to continue to market it. And it will, I'm bringing in royalties and so on and so forth. But it's not like, pre-order now and get all these things. I didn't do that for that one. And I'm not saying I'm not going to do that for the next one. But what was interesting is, as I was thinking about this, I'm like, well, I should really just focus on marketing the productivity diet, because that's what will sell it. And then my brain, and it's the prefrontal cortex that is like, well, hold up. That a new book always moves the back catalog of your author's previous books. Like, that. Like, you do. You can't argue that. You're right, I can't. And again, the argument's going on in my brain. So if you get, and you already promised that you'd have that draft done by June, end of June. Yes, I did. So instead of thinking about, you've got to market this book and you've got to do this, by writing the book, I am also marketing the next book or the previous book. I'm marketing. So you're killing two birds with one stone, even though you don't necessarily need to, this is going to sound morbid, even though you don't necessarily get to see the deaths happen at the same time, because the other book won't be out for a while. Yeah. But as soon as I reframe, and it's reframing, it's the choices. As soon as okay, so it does make sense to work on both. And even when I'm writing this next book, it is in service not just of the writing of the book, but the marketing of the productivity diet. So again, you could call it crap rationalization. You can call it epiphany. You can call it whatever you want. But by doing that, I am leveraging momentum on both, because I'm like, okay, well, I'm keeping this thing moving in the right direction. And it was fascinating to me when I had that thought. The two I mentioned earlier, like, oh, well, what about this thing? Instead of like, well, you got to do that. it kind of short circuited my brain to go, well, I can't throw that excuse out anymore because, that's so, and your brain will always look for the path of least resistance. It will always, because it wants to survive. It wants to, that's all it, at the end of the day, that amygdala, the old part of our brain, just wants to be able to like meet our basic needs. And that's really, it's the prefrontal cortex that goes, no, we're meant for more. We're meant for, like, it's hitting those higher levels if you want to use Maslow's hierarchy of needs or whatever. And you're always having these conversations either consciously or subconsciously in your mind where it goes, I only need this. Yeah, but what if we had this? Yeah, but I only need this. But what if we had this? Okay, sure, I'll let you have it this time. But the next decision we have to make, remember, we only need this. And so it's this constant back and forth. And if you leverage momentum and you think about it in terms of moments and qualitative stuff, I think it allows you to kind of just right action, right time. Like it allows you to kind of keep doing that, and you can essentially make it last longer if you because there's no way to know when it will end, because external forces can show up or you get tired or what have you. But you and I both, as night owls, have stayed up probably to the wee hours of the morning working on something that we had momentum with, right?
Yeah. Well, and that you didn't want to lose, right?
Right.
That you knew that if you stopped, then that you might not have that same flow back, right?
Yeah, and
that's the thing. That's the thing that keeps you up. That's the thing that keeps you going and keeps you working. Is it's the same thing with just regular old tasks, right? The truth of the matter is that like I know if I'm like out working in the yard, doing the thing, getting the yard work done, that sort of thing. I know if I like, okay,
Stop.
I just need to sit down for 10 minutes. I'm not getting back up.
No,
I'm not gonna, that it's going to take a tremendous amount more effort for me to do so. And so I'd rather just, and it's the reason why, we work through lunch or we work through, we work through other things, or maybe you've got a meeting coming up at 1, but you're in a groove, and it's like I think I'm going to shoot him a note and say, yeah, I'm going to be late to that meeting.
So this goes back to, I'm trying to think of a good way to phrase this, but because that's the excuse I often hear from people when I say, well, just capture it and get back to it later. Yeah, but I want to get going on it. I'm like, all right. Because it's true. Like, something comes to mind, you're like, okay, well, this is, and it's that shiny new object or that shiny thing. So I wonder if,
or it's just where your energy just happens to be too.
It could go any number of ways, but I wonder if there's a quick check that you can do, which says, is this something that I need to give? Like, I'm trying to think of like, Neriel talking about like indistractability, right? And the idea of the opposite of distraction is traction, right? So am I willing to give this thing traction right now? Or is it just simply a distraction from the thing I should be working on? I think if you answer, the problem is, again, it's nuance. You can't absolutely say, yep, this is a distraction. I should be working on this thing, because you just pointed out why maybe you need to shift gears for a second. Right. And that's because, hey, my energy is flowing here, which is exactly why when, you can never say capture everything, just, whatever you're working on, just capture stuff that comes to mind and leave it at the side till you're ready to work on it. I think it's you got to know your landscape, right? Like, you've got to understand the lay of the land. And if something comes to mind and you're working on something else, but that thing either internally or externally is pulling you, as long as you've got a way to get back to where you were before, like, how Hemingway used to end his sentences like mid-sentence and go, okay, well, that's it, timer went off. Like, that was his trick to go, okay, well, I know I want to have momentum going into tomorrow's writing session. Oh, look, it ended on the. Like I guess I got, whereas,
the what?
right. And I mean, it might take a few minutes for that to get back going, but in some instances, leaving it at that point, he's like, I know where that idea is held and it's captured essentially. So again, there's no right or wrong here. It's just you have to be willing to at least ask the question. Hey, is this something that's
Yeah.
trying to distract me, or is it something I need to, is it a worthwhile diversion? Or is it something that is serving to keep me from working on the thing that I know is either killing me right now, or I'm not going to get the instant dopamine. I'm not going to get the hit that I need right out of the gate. Writing a book, that's another great example. I mean, it's way easier for us, Patrick, to just put blog posts out and email newsletters and things like that. Because done, dopamine.
Well, and honestly, I've read enough books recently that should have just been blog posts, to be honest.
Oh, there are so many. There are. Yep.
But that's, that said, yeah, I think, I think that there are, some things worth doing, worth having momentum on, right? And worth the flow, right?
Yep.
And being able to discern between what those are, being able to figure out those tips and those tricks and those hacks that allow you to start in that state, whether it be Hemingway's mid-sentence thing, whether it be the tip that I gave to start this off, whether it be these are really, all of these things are just an effort to be like, okay, here's this really big important thing I want to do. I want to be consistent about doing it, and I want to know if for some reason I have to stop, where to pick it back up again and keep running at the same pace.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, we can go back to the tortoise and the hare, that old parable, that old fable, where he just kept going and going, and the rabbit, the hare, got pretty close to the finish line and said, I'm going to take a break and sleep under the tree. And the tortoise just went right on by.
In the middle of the night.
Yep. Yeah. So it again, there, we'll put some stuff in the show notes that can hopefully help you out with this. I've got a couple of ideas. But next time around, it's actually a nice little dovetail because we're going to talk about sustainability. Is next month's topic, which this leans right into.
Well, I mean,
we also
exactly.
It's also not something that people think about consistency when it comes to this kind of stuff, but they don't think about sustainability. And again, they're cousins, but they're not the same. And I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah. Well, and, just as a preview, to the talk, right? I am unusual in that I tend to think in much greater time spans than most people do. Part of that is some of it's my professional hobby, which is home restoration. But part of it is just the way that I'm built, right? And so what's nice about sustainability, and this is a preview for our next talk, is that even that word in the past 10, 20 years has come to have much deeper, wide-ranging meaning than it did previously.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I can't wait to dive into that, but we'll leave you on that note for this month. We'll be back next month for our 7th episode in season 2. We've still got a few more episodes to go. But Patrick, where can people keep up with what you've got going on? And by the way, wherever you're getting this podcast right now, the show notes will be there. If you're listening on Spotify, leave a comment. Like, what topics do you want us to cover in season 3 that we haven't covered in season 1 or even season 2? If you're watching on YouTube, you can leave that in the comments as well. Apple Podcasts, again, ratings, reviews, all that stuff helps. But you can also find, of course, the show notes at mikevardy.com/podcast609. But where can people find your stuff?
PatrickRhone.com is probably the quickest, easiest, dirtiest place to get to all the things I do. But one thing I wanted to say about those suggestions, right?
Mhm.
I just want people to understand because, folks say that on podcasts all the time and, maybe they get to your thing, maybe they don't, whatever. But uh, Mike is super organized about this stuff. And he actually has a list. We know exactly what the topics are going to be for this entire season. I'm sure that he has already started working on the topic list for season 3. If you make suggestions and they are good ones that we have not covered, he will put it on the list and we will discuss it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, we have last season and this season, so there's lots of areas that we can go into, and we may even revisit some conversations because I mean there.
Actually, that would probably be nice to do and be good to do, especially as there's so much change, right, in our personal lives, right? I
Yes.
mean, you've got a lot going on with you and the kids and the family and the house. I've got a lot going on, with Beatrix and college and all of that stuff. And for folks who have been listening to these episodes, that so much of what we talk about, we derive from the things that are happening in our lives or in the lives of our kids and the challenges they're facing or whatever. So it actually would be nice to maybe follow up on some of that. Maybe we should have an episode that's just like, oh yeah, hey, whatever happened to the whole Beatrix College thing? Where's she
Yep.
going? What was I won't know that probably till season 3. There will be some resolution. It'll be nice to kind of follow up on some of those
It-
things. What's going on with your kitchen, for instance?
yeah, yeah.
What's
Well,
happening with your right. Now
urgent.
we don't. No, we're not going to get into it right
No, no, no,
now.
no,
I
no,
guess
no.
what
But
I'm saying is
what I'm saying is, I mean, things like urgency and importance change for us over time. Things like that, which
right.
we touched on both. So no, this is a great. Again, we have no signs of slowing down. We've got momentum going, and we want to
We
keep things,
do.
and we're going to sustain things, but not any
Yes.
longer for this episode. Thanks so much for taking the time to join me, Patrick. We'll see you next
Yeah.
time.
This was great.